Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 312. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, April the 22nd, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. It's been a while since I've done a Saturday morning podcast. Yeah, they've been Sundays, they've been Fridays, they've been Thursdays, they've been Tuesdays, they've been a little bit other than Saturday just because of the way my schedule has been. Not complaining, just stating a fact, all right? But maybe things are getting back to normal. Maybe things are just settling down. Maybe this is the oddball. Maybe I'm doing a Saturday morning podcast and the next one's going to be on a Sunday or a Tuesday or a Thursday or fill in the blank. But we're here on a Saturday morning, so maybe we'll get back to a little bit of a more of a normal schedule or not. The topic of today's podcast was inspired by a listener. And she sent me actually she put it on my Facebook post, talking about inflation and the rise in cable television rates, cable TV, satellite TV, whatever, pay television for all intents and purposes. And I thought about that. And actually, this listener said, hey, if Elon Musk's Starlink comes into play, will this drive down the cost of cable, satellite, et cetera, et cetera? And I wanted to talk about inflation as a whole, because the listener had a good point, a good topic. But then I thought to myself, satellite TV, cable TV has gotten out of hand. But it's gotten out of hand, but it's not a necessity. It's a luxury. Okay. Oh my gosh, we can't get by without high cable TV. Well, we can get by without cable TV, period. But basically, the topic of today's essay is inflation real? Or I guess maybe to better word the essay, how real is inflation? When we start talking about, the price of milk, eggs, gasoline, and your electric bill. Okay, those are real. Those are things that you just have to have. If you don't have the basic staples of food, you will starve. If you can't turn on the electricity or the natural gas, you will freeze. Or in the summertime, you'll bake. Okay. Healthcare costs. If you can't afford to go to the doctor and get medicine, you will die. Those are things that you need. Cable television, pet care, your internet bill, the price of a car wash. What's the other thing besides car washes that have popped up like crazy? Storage units, the rent on the unit to store my crap that I don't even need. When the price of all that stuff goes up, is it really inflation? Okay. It is, but is there a way to just eliminate that by just not participating? Because none of those are things that you really have to have. We'll talk about that. How real is inflation on the essay? But first, let's talk about a couple other things. Jaguar Mark 7 update. In fact, I will be giving these on a regular basis now, because before I would go weeks, sometimes months without an update with a good excuse or a good reason, because the shop where I had the car didn't work on it. Okay, if they had it, if they hadn't worked on it for whatever reason, I had zero updates. The car is now in my shop. So if I have zero updates, it's because I've become the slacker, okay? And I'm not saying that's not going to happen, because I do have a few slacker genes in my DNA, but I intend to work on this thing fairly regularly, so I should be able to give you a fairly regular update. Of course, I didn't work on it last weekend because I was just coming back from the desert adventure. I had things to do around here. This week I worked the 9-to-5 job, 5 days. So I did get a chance to work on it one evening after work. And after the podcast, I'm going back to work on it all day today. That's Saturday, April the 22nd. But I want to tell you what I did on on Wednesday evening. In theory, it wasn't a whole lot, but the planning stage was huge. I had a piece that I needed to install that I had cleaned up. It was on the trunk. When you open the trunk, there's a stay or a keeper, okay, that engages and keeps the trunk up. So that had to have some little work done. I did a little work to that. I reinstalled that. Not a big deal, except for it was a big deal because this is one of those jobs where you needed 3 hands, okay? And I only have 2. So the top of my head supported the trunk while I installed this unit. So it took longer than I needed to. And of course I installed it, stood back, looked at it, smiled, and then said, okay, it's wonderful, except for you've installed it upside down. So I had to take it apart and start all over again. But that's just how those things go. The biggest thing I did was kind of laid out what I'm going to be doing moving forward. And as I looked at all the parts that I need to install, and I looked where they were, they're in a variety of boxes, in a variety of places, on a variety of shelves, in a variety of locations in my shop. Bottom line is, this stuff is just everywhere, and I don't know where it is, okay? So I thought to myself, well, how am I going to address this? How am I going to put some semblance of organization on putting this car back together? Well, my dear wife is a big jigsaw puzzle maker. Okay, she loves to do jigsaw puzzles. And this car, for all intents and purposes, is a big jigsaw puzzle. I've got 5,000 plus pieces that I have to reassemble on this car, and they all go in a certain spot, okay? What's the first thing my wife does before assembling a puzzle? She lays all the pieces out flat so she can see them, okay? So I thought, you know what? If it works for a puzzle, it's going to work for this car. So this is a 2-bay shop that I have. In one bay sits my Jaguar Mark 7. In the other bay sits my Saturn Sky Redline. I keep that out of the weather. Well, the Saturn Sky has just lost its home. So that car gets pulled out. The footprint, which is like 6 by 16 feet, that's now going to be a staging area for all the electrical parts that I have. They're all going to be laid out on the floor so I can see them all. After they're all staged out and laid out so I can see them all like pieces of a puzzle, one by one, bang, they go onto the car. Bang, bang, bang. I've got diagrams. I've got photographs. I have my memory. I guess I'll use them in the memory is the probably the least common denominator that I'm going to use. Probably photographs, then diagrams, then memory. I took photos of all this stuff, so I ought to be able to know where it goes, okay? Once it's installed, all the electrical parts are installed on the firewall. I can then do the electrical wiring, and then I have to do hook up the fuel lines, and then hopefully this thing will start running, okay? So anyway, that's what I'm going to do this weekend. Staging area, if I have time, which I think I will, begin assembling some of the electrical parts onto the firewall. There's the Jaguar Mark 7, 1951 Jaguar Mark 7 update for the week. I had an interesting experience, and it has to do kind of with the topic that we're talking about. Kind of not. I'm having more and more problems with rental cars, and I've fussed about this before. And it's just not rental cars per se. This particular one is, but it has more to do with, I guess, just the automation of everything. Okay, several weeks ago, I rented a car. I went through the state of Pennsylvania. In the state of Pennsylvania, they have a lot of toll roads. And the way enterprise rental car works is you go through the toll road. You can't stop and pay the toll anymore. You used to be able to stop, pay your toll, and then go. They don't do that anymore. They just take a picture of your license plate. They send you the bill. You pay the bill. Well, it's not my car. It's Enterprises, so they pay the bill. then they charge me like a $5 service charge and I pay enterprise. Fine. I got a $100 bill. I said, okay, I don't know what this $100 bill is for. It's from the toll authority. Okay. I've already been invoiced for my tolls. Now I get a $100 invoice. I don't know what this is for. So I call Enterprise. Says, oh, that's for tolls. I said, no, I've already paid my tolls. Plus it's $100, even $75 plus a $25 service charge. Your service charges are usually closer to $5 or $6. Okay, let me look at it a little bit further. Oh, this is a moving violation. I said, oh, it is? Yes. Well, when was it? Well, we don't know. Where was it? We don't know. Well, what was it? Oh, we don't know. I said, well, you just can't say, hey, you've got some type of a violation. You need to pay some money. I'm not doing that. I said, you say if this is a moving violation, I need to know what it was. Was I speeding? Did I run a stop sign? Did I not use my blinker? Did I change lanes improperly? What did I do that was wrong? I need to know what I did was wrong. They said, well, we don't have that information. I said, well, I'm not paying you your $100. They said, well, you have to. I said, no, I don't. Well, we've got your credit card. Well, I'll just tell the credit card not to pay it. And we went back and forth and back and forth. And the gentleman I had on the phone was, judging by his accent and the way call centers work, I believe he was from the Philippines. Very kind, very knowledgeable, very understanding. I was on the phone with him for about an hour, going back and forth and back and forth. He kept saying he understood where I was coming from. So finally he said, let's go to this website together and find out what's going on. I said, okay, I've been to the website, but let's do it. Okay, so you go to the Pennsylvania website, and they say, look, if you want to see what's going on here, just enter all this information. So I had to enter my the violation number. Okay, what's the violation number? This document you sent me doesn't say anything about a violation number. They said, well, we call it an invoice number. Okay, you call it something different than them. So I enter in the invoice number. License plate number, that's on the document. I can enter that in. Then they asked for my PIN number. I said, I don't know what a PIN number is. And the guy says, well, it's the PIN number on your phone. I said, no, it's not the PIN number on my phone. I'm not even on my phone. I'm looking on a desktop computer. Okay, well, let me find out. Well, he found out, and the PIN number is actually what they call the location number. Okay, and he said it's the first 4 digits of your location number. Well, I did that. Nah, that didn't work either. So basically the guy's saying, look, I don't know what else to do. Let me talk to somebody else. Well, he's talking to somebody else. I'm thinking to myself, maybe this PIN number is a location number, but maybe you have to use all 8 digits, just not the first 4. So I put in all 8 digits and bang, it pops up. And I look at it, and it is a moving violation. They said I was going 70 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone. That was a construction zone. Okay, well, they took a picture. Yes, that's the car I was driving. Yes, that's about the time I went by that place. But there's one other problem. This was not a ticket. This was a warning ticket with a charge of 0. And so as I'm looking at this, thinking, okay, here's the charge. Here's the smoking gun. Yes, this was me, but I wasn't invoiced. it's a no charge, and you're trying to get $100 out of me. Well, the guy comes back on and says, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you within 24 hours, we will send you a picture of that document that's on the website. And then if you have that, will you pay it? I said, sure, just send me the picture and I'll pay it. And we hung up. Well, when they find it, when they find it, they're going to see that this was not a moving violation. This was a warning ticket with an invoice of 0. But again, I spent the better part of yesterday afternoon fighting with these people over this. That's just part of this whole automated thing that makes things easier. For the people sending you the bill, it makes it easier for them. So that was my rental car blues tale for today, which kind of leads into, it does lead into this whole inflation thing, because $100 bill, that's a lot of money. Okay. And that comes into inflation as well. And if it's $100 for a speeding ticket, that's fine. If it's $100 for just to stick in your pocket, that's not fine. That has to do with inflation too. Before we get into inflation, though, one more thing before we get into this how real is inflation essay. Nobody likes inflation, and it makes everybody smile. it makes nobody smile, makes everybody frown. But what does make people smile? Wall Street Journal did a survey on who are the very happy people. Not just kind of happy, not just mostly happy, very happy. Something like 12% of Americans see themselves as very happy, okay? And it breaks down the demographics of that. And the demographics of the people in this country that are very happy is very interesting. Their age. A truly disproportionate amount of these people are 60 plus. Like 44% of them. 16% are 18 to 29, 31% are 30 to 44. Ages 45 to 59, your true big earning years, only 9% say they're really happy. 60 plus, 44% of the people that are very happy are 60 plus. In other words, they're not putting their nose to the grindstone, most of them. The gender, not a huge discrepancy. Well, I guess got kind of a huge discrepancy. 65% are women. Only 35% are men. Here's the thing that was very interesting is political parties, virtually no difference. Of the share of people that are very happy, 44% of the poll, the people that took the poll were Republican or were Democrats. 44% were Democrats. And 44% of those people are very happy. Republicans, 38 and 39. Unaffiliated, 18 and 17. The bottom line is political party has absolutely nothing to do with how happy you are. Okay? And you think to yourself, well, really, there's not a whole lot I can do because you can't control your age, you can't control your gender, you can control your political party, but that doesn't seem to matter. Okay, how do you get from the not so happy to very happy? There's a couple of other things. The vast majority of these people were very religious. They believed in God. The other vast majority of these people I don't want to say they were rich because they weren't, but they had enough income. In other words, they didn't have financial problems. However, when asked how important money is, the answer was not real important. And the bottom line is, did they have some money? Yes. But did they have $1 million and wanted $2 million, or did they have $2 million and were trying to get $4 million? No, that was the age group from 45 to 59, which was the lowest amount of people that were very happy. So the people filling their bank accounts were the least happy. The people that were already there were the most happy. But when surveyed about how important is money, they said, it's really not. It's not important at all. So the amount of money that they had wasn't important. What was important is that they had enough. They didn't want more. They just had enough, which I thought was very telling. And I guess if you have faith in God, that gives you a degree of solace. If you have enough, you don't have to get back and nose to the grindstone to make more and more and more and trying to talk the man into giving you more and trying to do more. And if you have enough, you have enough. Maybe that's the secret to happiness, okay? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And maybe you don't have to be old to be happy. But if you're old, you understand what's important. And that makes you tend to smile. Just saying. Think about it. Okay, let's get into the topic. We're 19 minutes into the podcast. Let's get into the topic. How real is inflation? Like I said, I had a listener who said, let's talk about high cable bills. And I thought, you know what? High cable bills are fine. But if you're going to run your pie hole for 40 minutes plus, you got to talk about more than just one subject. So let's expand the topic to just high prices, period. Everything is higher. The only thing worse than inflation, and inflation is just part of life, okay? 1%, 2%, 3% inflation, we can live with that. 5, 10, 15% like we've had, maybe not so much. That's where the problem comes in. And the only thing worse than inflation is deflation, because that's where things really start to come unglued, when you have deflation. We don't have that right now. Inflation is a bit high, but it's not super high, but it is a bit high. But everything is higher. Most important, over the last couple of years, wages have not kept up with the cost of living. In other words, the cost of living goes up 10% and wages go up 6%. The average worker loses earning power. Okay. But how real are those numbers? When they put stuff into the inflation numbers, okay, eggs, bread, milk, staples, okay, you have to eat. Those need to be included. Gasoline, for the most part, you have to have that because you got to go to and from work. You have to go to and from the grocery store. Unless you live in a big city, taking the bus really isn't an option. Okay, out here where I live in the suburbs, we don't have mass transit. Sure, you can trade in the 8-mile-an-hour Ford F-250 truck for a Prius and get a whole lot better gas mileage, but you still have to buy gasoline. So that's a big deal. But look where you spend money now versus 10, 20, 30, if you're old enough, 40, 50 years ago. Okay. What did you buy then versus what do you buy now? And friends, I think you will find that many things on the list that you believe is a necessity wasn't even around 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And your cable bill was one of them. As were all the other things. Okay. Your internet bill. That wasn't a big internet bill. Come on. You didn't have an internet bill because you didn't have the internet. There's other things. I mean, if you look at construction around in my area, there's the two biggest things that are popping up for construction. The three biggest things. The first thing is apartment buildings. Apartment buildings are popping up everywhere. But as far as commercial businesses, the number one thing that's popping up is car washes. The number two thing with the buildings that are popping up everywhere, storage units. Okay. Now think about it. To say that these are not necessities is being very kind. Not many people have dirty cars. Not many people who own nice cars have dirty cars, which is great. I think that's wonderful. You need to take pride in ownership and have your car be beautiful. I've often said more than once that if when you lock your car and start walking away from it, if you don't turn around, look at it and smile, you're driving the wrong car. And if you really love your vehicle, you're going to keep it clean. I personally wash my cars in my driveway. I know of nobody else that does that. Nobody. They take it to the car wash. Now, wow, the car wash is $10 now. It used to be $5. Okay. Wash in your driveway, dope. You don't have to go to the car wash. Why, they just raised the rent on my storage shed. Okay. Your storage shed generally holds stuff that you're not using. Why are you have too much stuff. You don't want to pay that bill for your storage shed? Sell the stuff at a garage sale or give it away to a charity. You save money. You've saved money the next day. Pet care. I'm not saying that, okay, you shouldn't own a pet. That's not true. What I mean is the amount of money we spend on pets versus the amount of money we used to spend on pets. I see a lot of like pet spas. People take their pets to be pampered, okay? Doggy daycare. What the heck is that? I mean, if you want to spend your money on that, that's fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. But what you can't do is say, oh my gosh, the world's going to hell in a handbasket because my doggy daycare went up 30%. Put them in a cage or your basement or something when you go to work. You don't have to have doggy daycare. You don't have to spend $5 for a can of food for your dog. People spend a lot of money on their pets. And I'm not saying that's wrong. If it's your money, you should spend money on that. But what I'm saying is don't fuss because the doggy daycare and your doggy's day spa went up 30%. Just don't take them there anymore, okay? The storage units are the same way. We own too much stuff in this country. Don't pay the bill, okay? Cable TV. Now, I know I'm the exception to the rule. I watch very little television. Generally, the hotels that I stay in when I'm traveling on the day job, there's anywhere from 30 to 40 to 400 stations on the television that I can watch in the evening. I almost never turn on the television. If I'm going on a trip where I'm staying out 4 nights, I would say maybe one night I will watch a little bit of television. One night. Usually it doesn't even go on because there's very little on television that interests me. I will say that I will watch a Jeopardy show with my wife because she enjoys watching that. If it's on, I'll watch that with her. There's 1 or 2 network televisions that I will occasionally sit down and watch with her. Maybe an old movie on TCM, maybe some one of those British period things that my wife likes to watch. I'll sit down with her with something like that. But for me, or a baseball game, personally, I don't usually watch baseball games. I turn on the radio and do something else while I'm listening to it. But I'm not a big fan of cable TV. If it were up to me, if my wife were to say, you know what, I really don't want to have cable TV at all, I'd say, fine, let's cancel it tomorrow because I really don't care about it. It just, there's 400 channels and nothing to watch. How's that? Okay. I'd just soon work in the yard, read a book, research stuff on the internet. If I want to watch something, I'll watch it on the internet. Okay. That's how I'd just soon do stuff. But inflation is a real thing. But there's so much that we can cut out. There's so much we can eliminate that would just put the damper on inflation big time. We still buy stuff, and we're a consumer-based economy. What is it? 60, 70% of our economy is consumer-driven. As societies become more affluent, that number goes up. China's is going up as they become more affluent. But we all need stuff, but nobody wants the regular stuff. Everybody wants the good stuff. And when it comes to household supplies, household staples, diapers, toothpaste, toilet tissue, everybody needs it. Everybody needs to buy more. Well, I guess not everybody. I mean, if you have very small children or very old people, those are the only folks who need diapers. But you know what I'm saying, okay? Diapers, toothpaste, toilet tissue, the staples everybody has to have. Now there's the standard toilet paper and there's the premium stuff. The company that sells probably the best stuff around is P&G, Procter & Gamble. They make good stuff. They make Pampers diapers. They make the best toothpaste. They make the best toilet tissue, Charmin toilet tissue, the soft stuff. I mean, nobody wants to use John Wayne toilet paper, okay? You want to use the good stuff, okay? Everybody wants to use that stuff. P&G sells household staples. They sell diapers, toothpaste, toilet paper. People have to have them. Consumers have shifted their discretionary spending to services like restaurants, travel, streaming video, and away from goods like that, especially the higher priced items, okay, like cars and appliances. But the Consumer Price Index, which is a closely watched inflation gauge that measures what consumers pay for, rose 5% in March, okay? That was earlier than before, but the March before it was 10.1%, okay? But U.S. consumers are paying lower prices for gasoline and groceries, but higher prices for shelter, airfares, etc., but also for the good stuff. P&G makes Gillette razors, SK2 skincare creams. And for the overall period of March 31st, that ended March 31st, P&G reported a net income of $3.42 billion. That's $1.37 a share, compared with $3.37 billion or $1.33 a share a year earlier. In other words, stuff is up for P&G. Now, does that mean people are buying more of their product? No, that's not what that means at all. In fact, they're buying no more of the product than they did before. In fact, what they call organic sales, in other words, buying the same stuff as far as items go has remained the same for P&G. Then why are things going up? Because they just raised their prices. They've raised their prices 7 and 9%. Now they just raised their prices another 10%. Why did they do that? Well, of course, to make more money. But because people keep buying their stuff. People want the good stuff. People don't want the garbage. People don't want the generic. People don't want the John Wayne toilet paper. Okay, they don't want the diapers that leak. They don't want the toothpaste that tastes bad. They want the good stuff. They want the P&G stuff. So P&G says, fine, you want it, you're going to pay more. And they do. And it's just one more thing where I'm telling you folks that this is where we've come as a society. We crab about inflation, but we won't make a compromise. You don't like what the price of Charmin toilet paper is? Then buy something from Georgia Pacific. You're right. It's not as good. It's not as soft, but it costs less money. That's a way to beat inflation, a simple way to beat inflation, but it's a compromise, and most people aren't willing to do that. The other dual-edged sword to inflation has to do with interest rates. And of course, if you borrow money, you don't like interest rates. But if you save money, you do like interest rates. And I'm sure all of you who save have noticed what's been going on at the banks. I'm going to name names here because I'm helping my father with his finances. And he had his very modest savings in Bank of America. And they were paying him a whopping 0.03% interest. When we move that to American Express, they have an account, and it's drawing a whole lot more. I forget what it is right now. It's like, I'm going to say almost about 4%, something like that. But what he now gets in a month exceeds what he was getting over a 5-year period, something astronomical like that. The big banks just aren't paying interest, but other alternative banks and sources are. And Apple is one of them. Apple has gotten into the pay. Apple Pay's been around for a while, but they're getting into finances big time. In fact, when they first came out with Apple Pay on your phone, where you just click on the credit card machine, it takes everything from your phone and takes care of everything. It's wonderful. I use it. I like it. It's easy. You don't have to take the credit card out. You don't have to wait for the scanner to work. You double click. It's done. It sees your face. It's done. And the bill goes to your credit card. I thought to myself, well, how do they make money on this? Well, they're starting to get close to making money on this. And it's just getting involved in finances and getting involved with money. Apple is now starting to pay money on cashback. Okay, they've got a credit card, or they have a not a credit card, but they've got a savings account that pays 4.15%, a lot more than the banks. And you think to yourself, well, that's just more of the big boys getting into the picture. Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, Apple's one of the big boys, but they had nothing to do with finance. They're getting into finance now. And just like more companies getting into the cable business, the satellite business, the price in theory should go down. As more people get into the financial business, in theory, the price of the interest rates that you get should be going up. So that's very interesting. And Tim Cook years ago gambled on this whole thing with Apple Pay, getting into finance, because finance is where a lot of people make a lot of money. And Apple is right on the cusp of that. So they're very close to being the next American Express, the next non-bank entity where you put your money. And it's all going to be in your phone. It's all going to be controlled by Apple. There are those that say, well, that's just another big brother thing. Why would you want to do that? Okay. Don't do it. Go ahead and keep your money in Bank of America instead, okay, where you earn just about zero interest, okay. You're going to be involved with the big boys whether you like it or not. Just pick the big boy that's going to work with you more than the other big boy, okay? Last but not least, and this has nothing to do with inflation, I guess, but it has something to do with, if you remember when I opened up this whole essay on how real is inflation, and we wring our hands with inflation. We're all concerned about money. Most of us are concerned about money. But the happiest people don't seem to be concerned about money, okay? That's going back to the last story we had before the essay. Who are the happy people? They have a little bit, but most importantly, in their mind, they have enough. So they don't have to fight to get more, which can cause anxiety, grief, pain, take up your day, etc. And people are always thinking, they always have been thinking for years and years and years and years about how much is enough? When is enough? And one of the things that the story about the happy people said, they were mostly old people. You think, well, why would the old people be happy? They're close to death, which is true. Death is something we all think about. I think at one time or another, some more than others. As you become older, the reality becomes more evident, okay, that you're going to die. Or that we're all going to die. The last thing I want to let you think about, folks, is the end of the world. And you've heard Nostradamus, you've heard Ivan Browning, you've heard, you name the soothsayer. They've talked about the end of the world. It's a story about Sir Isaac Newton, one of the smartest guys ever, the father of modern science. Back in 1704, predicted the end of the world. 2060. Oops, that's coming up. In fact, legendary scientist Sir Isaac Newton once predicted the world would end in 2060. And now people are terrified that he might be right. Many people have predicted the end of the world, from St. John the Divine in the 1st century AD to random time travelers that are on TikTok, okay? But while you may not take most of these prophecies seriously, when the father of modern science predicts the end of the world, maybe you need to pay attention. Now, Sir Isaac Newton, who made numerous pioneering discoveries in physics and mathematics, believed the world as we now know it would end in 2060. Now, that might seem like a long time away when he wrote this down in 1704, but it's just 37 years from today, and many of us will still be alive when this date rolls around. Now, recent surveys suggest that roughly 1 in 7 people believe the world will come to an end in their lifetime. Now, Newton, here's the thing about this. He's a man of science. But Newton used his close study of the Bible and other religious writings to calculate a specific date when the world we know would come to an end and be replaced with a literal kingdom of heaven on earth. He believed that in the middle of the 21st century, Christ would return and reign for a millennium, and the Jewish people would build a flourishing and everlasting kingdom. Newton wrote in the antique English of the period, so when the times and a half of the times are 42 months and 1260 days, or 3 years and a half, I'm not going to read that because it's dopey. Basically, he's saying, hey, this is when it's going to happen. He said it may be a little bit later, but it won't be any sooner. Now, for many, the revelation that Newton was a passionate believer in religion took his biblical prophecy seriously, and it actually came as something of a shock that the father of modern science would use the Bible as a way to predict the end of the world. Curiously, a couple of months after the 2060 story broke, there's a guy named Sir Martin Rees. He's one of today's leading scientists. He published a book entitled Our Final Hour, Our Final Century in the UK. And he's saying the human race has only a 1 in 50 chance of surviving the 21st century. Okay. Historically, I end these podcasts on a positive note. And you're maybe thinking to yourself, well, what the heck are you doing, Strong? the end of the world coming soon, predicted by some of the smartest people in the world? That's not exactly happy news. Here's the reason I said this. Arguably, Isaac Newton was one of the smartest men in the world ever to live, arguably. And he predicted the end of the world. I don't think you need to take it seriously. And here's why. There are the smartest people in the world. Pardon me. There are the smartest people in the world when it comes to science, and there's the smartest people in the world when it comes to other stuff. And Sir Isaac Newton, when it comes to science, I would listen to him. When it comes to biblical prophecy, I don't think I would even consider what he has to say. Okay? Because basically, if you're going to use the Bible to predict the end of the world, I think the Bible says no man knows the day or the time. You're kind of done. Okay, you're kind of done with biblical prophecy because the Bible says, look, we don't know. Stop looking. You should be done at that time. So when you hear people like Sir Isaac Newton, Elon Musk, Sir Martin Rees predicting the end of the world, remember these people are very, very smart when it comes to some things. When it comes to others, not so much. When you hear a real smart person saying this is going to happen because of biblical prophecy or something we saw in the stars or some other anything, that holds no more water than if Sir Isaac Newton were to pick the winner of the 2023 World Series. In other words, he doesn't know any more than you. So let's end this on a positive note, like I try to do the best I can. Inflation, don't worry about it. You want to save money? Just cut out the things that you don't need. Okay, if you're paying too much for gasoline, maybe don't take your dog to doggy daycare. Or maybe eliminate one of the subscription services you have for your music downloads. Or the storage shed rent that you pay, take that stuff, sell it, put it in you're not using it anyway, put it in your pocket and stop paying the rent. There's all kinds of, wash your own car instead of take it to the dopey car wash. You get a little exercise that way anyhow. Okay. Do you really need 18 billion megabits of internet service? Get the cheaper service, okay? Get the slower speed. There's a million ways you can save money. So don't wring your hands about the cost of bread going up. And don't worry about the end of the world. Just be like that 12% that's happy. Have enough and be grateful for what you have and live your life. That's it. We're done. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's our email address, JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. Where do you get the podcast? You can get the podcast so many ways. That's the easiest way, okay? JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. You can go to Podcaster, PODCASTRR. That's Brad Hildebrand's site. Or you can get the podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Facebook, Twitter, TuneIn, Radio Online, the podcast app, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, GeoSavant, Spreaker.com. All kinds of other places you can get it. You name it, it's there. But the easiest way is send me an email, and I will go ahead and download it, send it to your email, and you can go ahead or upload it, then you can download it, listen to it at your leisure. That's it. We're done. I'm done talking. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.